Okay, so we have way too much negative space above our subject in this photo, so I'm gonna go ahead and crop the photo to 4:3 and then go ahead and lower it down until her eyes line up with that top horizontal line. Next, I'm gonna grab one of my presets as a base for this one, and I think I'm gonna go C1. Right out of the gate, C1's looking a little too punchy for this image, so I'm actually gonna head to my curves first and go ahead and lift up my blacks to give it a little bit of a softer feel. Next, I'm gonna head down and I'm gonna add a little bit more green into the image and then also warm the image up just a little bit. Next, I'm gonna bring up my shadows a little bit and increase my highlights to really accentuate that bright sunlight coming through the trees. Then I'm gonna increase our vibrance a little bit as well as our saturation. Now the greens are looking a little too saturated and fake for my liking, so I'm actually gonna head over to my yellows to kind of bring those down a little bit. I'm gonna reduce the saturation and then also push them a little bit more towards the orange. Next, I'm going to reduce my exposure just a little bit so I can motivate this light coming in through the trees with a radial mask in the top right corner. And this mask, I'm gonna go ahead and increase the exposure, but then also decrease the dehaze to kind of give it a misty, dreamy feel coming through those trees. I'm also gonna warm up that radial mask as well to kind of emulate the warm sunlight peeking through. Now, I wanna do some work on the background here, so I'm gonna go ahead and create a subject mask and then duplicate and invert it so I can edit our background a little bit. Now, first and foremost, I'm going to add a little bit more contrast with the dehaze slider and then also add a little bit more saturation and then add a little bit more warmth to the background as well. Next, I'm going to grab that subject mask we made originally so I can increase the highlights on her a little bit more because I like that kind of high contrast highlights that are coming into the image. Next, I'm going to add a little bit more magenta into her skin tones as well as a little bit more warmth. Then I'm going to lift up her shadows a little bit and also increase her exposure just a hair so she pops off the background a little bit more. Next, I'm going to create a radial mask coming up from the bottom here and then reduce the exposure just a little bit to kind of, again, push the viewer's eye up towards the center of the frame. Next, I'm going to add some grain to the image because I like to have a more filmic feel to them, and I'm going to set the amount to about 40, but then set the size to about 5 and then the roughness to about 80. And I think that will do it for this one. So here's our before and our after.